Wow. That's what we've got. Okay, glad to see everybody at the Great Commission this morning. That's a little bit. I don't plan to be here very long. I have to say it's required. We all say it. We're probably not telling the full truth, but we say it with God, so it's okay. I've been coming to you this morning out of James, the first chapter. We're going to be starting in verse 2. Anybody wants to follow along, let me say amen when you got it. If I can get my Bible to cooperate with me. There we go. James chapter 1, and starting in verse 2. And I'm reading out of the NIV today, but it's still the Word of God. Amen. Amen. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Now the King James says patience, but I'm not a real big fan of patience. I like the term perseverance better. Patience, to me, says sit and wait.
Right.
And anybody who knows anything about the Bible, we're not supposed to just sit and wait. There's effort that's put into it. And so perseverance means to overcome, to deal with as it comes.
That's good.
Let's see, continuing in verse 4, it says, let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete and not lacking anything. And Nikki had actually touched on that about going through, and it was for your best. It was kneading the air bubbles out, as she said. And that's the first thing we want to do as Christians when we hit a roadblock is we want to give up.
Yeah.
We want to quit, we want to throw in the towel. Now, as somebody who closes roads on the regular, when you come up upon a road closure, there's the set of signs, there's 3 signs, road closed, 1,000 foot, 500 foot road closed. Then there's a first set of barricades. Then there's a second set of barricades. And then there are these lovely gentlemen in the orange vests trying to do their job. We have to turn people around every day.
True.
Now, there's a certain determination in that. There's probably a certain ignorance in that. But if people are that determined just to not go around, most of the time the detour is only a mile or so long.
Right.
4 or 5 minutes tops further than they would normally go. If you're that determined just to go through a roadblock, just to go through, well, I got to get home, I've got to get to work, I've got to get the kids to school. Why is it that we are not dedicated enough to get past the roadblocks in our lives?
You say it.
Now, I'm on the bridge department. This means that if I'm there and I have the road closed, the bridge is bad. We're working on it. The bridge is bad. Still get people pull up and say, is it safe to go across this? Oh no, you can try it.
You're right. See how far you make it.
But anyway. Verse 5 continues, it says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. It doesn't say sin. It doesn't say a sinner. It doesn't say a drunk. It doesn't say an adulterer. It doesn't say a murderer. It doesn't say any of those things. It says if you doubt. So to me that would mean that even a perfect sinless person with doubts will not receive anything from the Lord. You have doubts? I got doubts. I doubt every day. Every day. I doubt. Sometimes I doubt me. Sometimes I doubt my wallet.
Right. Right.
And it's not doubting whether it'll hold all the money, believe it or not.
Right.
But it continues to say that such a person is double-minded and unstable in all they do.
Yes, sir.
Double-minded.
Double-minded.
Now, I've heard it preached many ways. I've heard double-minded from this perspective, and I've heard double-minded from that perspective. But when you really look at the root of it, double-minded means I know the Word, I know what God has said, I know He's got me, but. There's always a but. There's always a but. I know God's got my finances, but the light bill is $100 more than it was last month.
Right.
I know God will provide me a way to get to work, but this truck's using a little more oil than it was last month.
Right.
I know that God has got my healing, but man, this back is hurting more than it was last month.
Right.
And so we doubt.
Yep.
We miss out on so much just because we doubt.
Yeah.
And we can't help it. It's built into us. It was even in the disciples that walked with Jesus. Thomas
Yes, sir.
doubted.
Yes, sir.
What can we do about being double-minded? There's the hard part. There's the part that I've not heard a lot about. You have to get rid of everything that causes you to doubt.
That's good.
Whether it's people in your life, oh man, you ain't going to make it through this.
Oh. Oh, I hear remember that.
Even if they don't say it to your face, well, I don't know how he's going to make it out of this.
Right. Right.
Because if you skip on down to verse 12, it says, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life which the Lord has promised to those who love Him."
Right. Amen. That's good.
But if you persevere,
Right. That's good.
if you persevere, you overcome. If you die in your mess, you won't get a crown. You're not going to make it. You don't. There is no participation trophy. Anybody that played ball when you were little remembers the participation trophy. Yeah, you're probably the worst one on the team, but you got a trophy anyway just for trying. Just for trying. It was a little tiny thing, and most of mine, the gold has fell off of it
Right.
for years. Man, that sounds a lot like our faith sometimes, don't it? You sit it back there on the shelf because it's real pretty, and then you come back a little while later, and every bit of the shiny goodness has just fell off, and it's laying on the shelf. And then you put it in a box, and you put it away.
Right. That's deep.
That hurts, don't it?
That's deep.
It stings a little bit. It gets me too, don't worry, I preach to myself too.
Yes, sir.
We go through these things, and then the worst part of it is the first thing we want to do is we want to say, God, why?
Right.
Why? Why have you done this to me? Why have you made the light bill go up? Why have you made the pipe bust under the house? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? God, I've been good. Why?
Why?
Well, the good news is James, not this one that we're reading out of, has that covered as well. It says in verse 13, it says, "When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone."
Right.
So God didn't do it. There's at least two options, either one of two options. One of them we can blame the devil for it. Lord knows we always do. And I'm not saying he deserves any sympathy, but he does get blamed for a lot that he didn't actually do.
Amen.
The other option is the most likely one. You probably got yourself in this mess yourself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Whether on purpose or whether by accident, most of the time it is our fault.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And yes, I'm a man, and I said it was my fault.
Woo.
Write it down,
I'm done.
date it. I'll sign it later. It says each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desire and enticed. So God doesn't tempt us. Never. And I'm guilty of it. I'll go be the first one to say. And I guess I try to do it out of faith, but when I'm going through something, it's easy to say, oh, well, God's just testing me.
Right.
God's just testing me. God put this in front of me. He's testing me. But all that really does is leave room for you to say, okay, well, Well, God said He wouldn't put anything more on me than I could handle, so if He's put it in front of me, it must be a blessing. It must be a blessing. It looks good.
Right.
It's within my price range. I can afford it, or maybe just I can get away with it. Maybe this is one of those little nuggets that God leaves for us.
Yeah.
No, not most of the time.
Yeah, no.
If it doesn't look like God, it didn't come from God.
That's good. That's how to preach right there by itself.
It says, and after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, it gives birth to death. Desire conceives, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when full grown, gives birth to death.
Right.
Does that mean sin is a living, breathing thing?
Most of the time.
Now, I had a lot of pets growing up, some of which I took care of, some of which I didn't.
Right.
And the one thing that I took away from all that is that living things without nurturing don't grow and live.
Amen.
How many hamsters did me and you go through, Chris? How many divots are in the backyards where we used to live? Yeah, it's not good. But if you don't nurture something, if you don't take care of something that's alive, it won't live.
No.
It will die. So then, if sin is a living thing, and you've been battling with it for years and years and years and years, you must have been feeding it.
Right.
You must have been nurturing it in some way, shape, or form, which goes back to being double-minded.
That's good.
We tend to multitask in the Spirit, if that makes any sense at all. We tend to multitask. I've seen a lot of people that'll cut grass with a sprayer on their back so that they can spray the Roundup and they can cut grass at the same time. And so, to be a double-minded Christian would mean that you can live for God, and at the same time over here on this side, you're out taking your sin for a walk. And that's where we get into trouble, because for some reason, even though we live like this, when something goes wrong, well, God, I sing on the praise team. I run the soundboard. I do all these things. Why? Why have you done this to me? And we've uncovered that God didn't do it. The devil may have done it, but most of the time he doesn't have to. He just sits back and waits for us to do it. Out taking sin for a walk.
That's awesome.
My Bible's gone to sleep. I got to wake it up. But what can we do? That's what we were born in. We were born into sin. The Bible says that.
Yes,
all the
sir.
songs say that. Born into sin.
Yes, sir.
And that's why we were given the Word. It tells us what to do. And matter of fact, good old James here's got us covered in verse 21, right on down the line. It says, therefore get rid of moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you.
Ooh. That's good.
It says evil's prevalent.
Yes, it does.
There's a lot more bad in the world than there is good.
Amen.
It doesn't take, you don't have to watch the news very long to figure that out.
That's true.
And so it says that we're supposed to humbly accept the word. We're supposed to cling to the word. And when it says humbly, when it says humbly, it means I'm not worthy of anything that the word promises me.
No, sir.
I deserve nothing that I've been given. Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely not.
If anything, I deserve death, if not worse,
Yes.
for the things that I've done against God in my life.
Me too. Me too.
It says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Deception in the word.
Well,
Deception in the word, that doesn't make any sense. The word is truth. But if you read it and know it and don't live it, you deceive yourself.
amen.
You you wake up every Sunday morning, you go to church, you go through the motions, you know the songs, you know the form and the fashion, you know how to say eloquent prayers over your dinner and all of those things. But if you don't live at least the core basic concepts of it, you're lying to yourself. You're better off sleeping in on Sunday morning than doing that.
Yes, amen.
And I do love to sleep in.
Amen.
Matter of fact, it says, anyone who listens to the word but does not what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and immediately forgets what he looks like.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Let's try an experiment. Whose face is on the $100 bill? Ben Franklin. Whose face is on the $20 bill?
Jack Jackson for now.
Okay. You remember those faces? Close your eyes and look at your neighbor. Now open your eyes. Yeah, I know some of y'all got the raw end of that. Did you have to introduce yourself over again?
No.
So you still knew that person, even though you hadn't looked at him for a second. Okay, then why do we have such a problem remembering the face of God instead of the face of Benjamin Franklin? Why do we have such a problem remembering His Word as opposed to remembering the faces of the people that we go to church with? I know what I look like. I don't have to look in the mirror to know what I look like. I'm scraggly and scruffy, and I look like I've been thrown away most days. I know this. I don't have to look over there to find out. But it says he immediately forgets what he looks like. And if you could dig a little deeper in that, you could forget the man in the mirror that we've talked about so many times from this pulpit. It's not about what everybody else sees. Everybody else recognizes me as Jamie, but I look in this mirror and I see things that none of y'all see.
Right.
I can see the little pock marks of the things that's happened to me in my life.
Come on.
I can see the little scars. I can see the weights that I have on my shoulders of the things that I deal with. But someone who doesn't remember, who doesn't know the Word, or at least what it says, I can hit this play button on this phone right here, and this phone can quote the scripture.
Right.
This phone's not going to heaven.
No. Right.
It's not going to make it. Memorization is not what this is telling us. It's telling us that we have to know it. We have to understand it. We have to keep it in our hearts so that we don't forget what we look like. I know what I look like because I know what I've been through. When I look in that mirror, I know what I'm going to see. I'm going to see, Lord help me, there are about 30 years of trials and tribulations, a lot of blessings along the way, but a lot of trials too. I'm going to see that when I look in the mirror.
Yes, sir.
But if I turn away and I immediately forget it, I'm just as likely to fall in the same hole that I fell in yesterday because I've already forgotten God's getting me out of it.
That's good.
And my Bible has gone to sleep again. Put the code in. There we go. And it's lost my place too, of course. Alright. And I'm going to close out with this. This one isn't a real fun one. It comes from verse 26 of the same chapter. It says, those who consider themselves religious and do not keep a tight rein on the tongue deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless.
Mercy.
Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is as this: to look after orphans and widows in distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world.
Awesome.
Religion is not a three-piece suit,
No, sir.
as it turns out. With research, I have determined that religion is not an elegant prayer. It is not a three-piece suit. It is not a pair of gator shoes.
No, sir.
It's not a big hat.
No. I got some.
Yeah, we have some. If it makes you feel better, we've got some big hats, and we have some old suits in the back, and we dress you right up. And so really, what it all comes down to is, it comes down to the form and the fashion, but lacking the power thereof.
There, amen. Amen.
It's a common verse. It's everywhere. It's probably being preached in pulpits around the world today. All of the knowledge in the world will not get you anywhere without the wisdom. And I think that's why God, it says it so many times in His Word, if you need wisdom, just ask for it and I'll give it. Knowledge is useless without wisdom.
Yes, sir.
Useless without it. You can have all the knowledge to build a car from scratch. Just whittle it out of a piece of wood, whatever your talent is. But if you don't have the wisdom to know how to operate it, it's useless. You're going to hit the ditch. Like I say, I know Sister Barbara, that she's been learning how to drive, and David, and it's not easy, is it? They make it look so easy in the movies. You know, you run the guy off the road, you run through the cornfield, and you're right back on the interstate. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Most of the time you don't make it past the driveway without a little bit of skill and wisdom. Knowledge is that the gas pedal makes it go. Wisdom is not to push it all the way down to start with.
Amen.
And really, that's all I have for you today. Just
Good word.
read the Word. Read the Word.
Yes, sir.
Ingrain it in your hearts. Keep it with you. Don't forget what you look like. None of us will, I promise.
Amen.
We'll remember you, especially this guy.
Amen.
That's it. Amen.
Amen.